Geoff! Good to see you. Geoff on and everything. Yeah, good to see you. The studio audience and everything. Wow. Every joke, do they force to laugh?
We've instructed them to do
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, this is a very rare opportunity. This is not Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg or MSNBC. We really want to get to know you today as a person. I can't wait to just get in, hear your story, and your outlook on the next 100 years in health. Hey there, I'm Dr. Austin Chang, and today we have a very special episode of Spill with one of the most prominent and influential voices in health tech, whose story and outlook on the next 100 years of healthcare you won't want to miss. I can't think of anyone I'd rather join me than Medtronic CEO, Geoff Martha. I hope you're a tea person, but it's a special kind of tea. Let's take a sip. Cheers.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was not the greatest pour.
Okay, it is a little bit of a different type of tea. Yeah, okay. You caught me off guard on this one. Is it Diet Coke?
I hear that's your thing. Is that true?
I like Diet Coke. I've tried to cut down on it, but I do like it. When you're talking all day, sometimes you need something to kind of soothe your throat. And,
this early in the morning, we need a little caffeine, like a little pick-me-up,
Absolutely.
Right? Let's go ahead and pick up our whiteboards.
Okay.
And these are going to be some rapid-fire questions. So I just want to write down one-word answer.
One word.
And we'll get into it. Okay. So football or hockey? I kind of have an inkling what this might be.
Oh yeah, I definitely like football. I definitely like the Vikings, but we'll see what my answer is.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right, what's your answer? Let's show the cameras here.
Okay. You wrote yours bigger. Okay, hockey. I put hockey. Yeah, I'll have to write it a little bigger.
So you've been a big hockey fan, like what, Minnesota Wild or?
Look, I grew up playing hockey. I started playing hockey at 4 years old. And, played through, that was a big part of my life growing up. I mean, it dictated a lot of the things, a lot of the big moves I made, going away to boarding school where I went to college, played hockey in college. So hockey was just a, big source of my identity and enjoyment.
So not just a fan, you're an actual hockey player.
Yeah, I played for a long time. I still play, I still play a little bit.
Wow. Well, moving on to the next question. Medical drama or documentary?
All right,
ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
I went with drama.
Drama, The Pit?
The Pit. You got to watch this. It's a new episode.
What is this?
It's filmed in Pittsburgh, and it's actually pretty interesting.
I did see
it. It's like they have these patients come in the ER or the ED, and they have to, diagnose. And it's fun for me being grown up in Pittsburgh. They mention a lot of the parts of Pittsburgh, and So
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I mean, usually for me, medical dramas are a little too much because that's what I deal with like every day. So I've put documentary, but there are like those reality series where they kind of go into hospitals and whatnot. And fun fact, my cousin was actually on a medical reality show as a plastic surgeon. So,
oh, really?
Some of it may or may not be totally scripted, but
yeah.
But that's cool. Okay, awesome. Good to know. I'll have to check that series out. Last question.
Okay.
80s music or 90s music? All right.
80s. It's not even close. It's not even close. Like, oh man, like for example, even today, like my kids used to make fun of me saying, "Dad, you're stuck in the 80s." Now they're 25 and 23, and they're listening to the 80s. I mean, they are. Okay. It's everywhere.
Now we're gonna get into some questions. Let's go ahead and set these whiteboards down.
The whiteboard. I was just kind of getting into that.
You have been CEO at Medtronic for a couple of years now. Tell us how you got there. What's your story? You already mentioned bits and pieces of your upbringing, but this journey, what led up to this point?
It started like at Penn State. I had some good advisors in college that said you really need, upon graduation, go to a company that's going to invest in you, like a training program. And I looked at a couple companies. GE rose to the top of the list, got into GE, and I started with their fastest growing area, which was that time financial services, or what they call GE Capital. 15 years in GE Capital, and really learned a lot, enjoyed a lot, learned a lot about business and leadership. But I really, after 15 years doing that, I really wanted to get into something that was more tech, more global, and a more like direct, tangible impact, positive impact on society I was looking for. And that led me to GE Healthcare, and GE Healthcare, more of an imaging company. And I fell in love with healthcare, and I fell in love with technology. Not an engineer, but it's fun to be surrounded by them and learning a lot about technology. And then when I had the opportunity, when my predecessor here at Medtronic, Omar Ishrak, was running, a big part of GE Healthcare, he got recruited to run Medtronic, invited me to join him. I started looking at Medtronic a little closer, and much more of a therapeutic area, a company closer to the patients, really exciting technology. And then we have this mission, and that really pulled me in. So here I have the global, the tech, and the mission really defines our impact on patients, on society, on our employees. It's a really, so I just got drawn in, and I've been hooked ever since.
Did your experience in sports sort of inform or your approach to your career at all?
My approach to leadership, for sure. I think team sports, I think sports in general, but in particular, team sports teach you a lot about organizational dynamics and leadership.
Okay. What's your favorite and least favorite part about being CEO?
Look, it's a privilege. Let's just start there. It's a privilege to be at the top of a large company, any large company, a company like ours in particular, that has the mission that we do and does the things that we do for in healthcare. It's and it's fun. It's exciting. It's technology. It's global. So my favorite part would be just the meeting all these different types of talented people that work, on the Medtronic team, but also we work with other stakeholders, whether it be physicians, of course, patients, government officials, people from all over the world, all walks of life, all different cultures. Every day, it's that kind of diversity and scale. I really love it. I think the toughest part can be, it can be all encompassing, and so it's hard to turn off. And sometimes even when you're, with your friends and family, you're not, even though you're physically there, sometimes you're not mentally all there, and it's hard to turn it off.
I can't imagine. I mean, this is an organization of over 90,000 people all across the globe. So that's a lot to juggle. I can only imagine. But what's the biggest misconception about being a CEO that you can share with us?
I think, I think that you have all this power that you can do whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't really work that way. I mean, sure, you have influence, but the idea that that there's these bunch of CEOs sitting in the back room controlling the world is that's not how it works.
Yeah, it's not like necessarily always just one person making all the decisions.
No, not at all.
Okay. It's time for my favorite part of the show, spilling the tea. In this segment, our followers on social media have submitted a variety of questions about the future of health tech over the next 100 years. So let's get into it. First question, what breakthroughs in health tech, just health tech in general, not just here, do you hope to see by the year 2125, so in 100 years? So there, a couple of the social media kind of comments had mentioned things like regenerative organs and nanotech-based pacemakers. I don't know if this has ever crossed your radar, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, 100 years is a long time. I mean, the pace of technology is moving so rapidly. And I think what's going to happen over the next 10 will potentially dwarf the past 100. So I'll answer the question, but I give you the caveat in all humility. I don't know that you can really look forward truly 100 years. So some of these things may be longer than 10 years, but way shorter than 100. Like I do think like some of the inbound ideas from your followers here, like on regenerative medicine, I do think we've invested in some companies over the years since I've been here that are doing this. It's tough. Some of those investments have been write-off. Some are still hanging in there. But just understanding regenerative medicine, how it could work, I do think it's going to happen. It's something that's out there. We look at it for diabetes. I mean, if you can, we specialize in type 1 diabetes where the pancreas isn't working properly, and I could see a day. It's not right around the corner. It's years, it's decades off probably still, but like where you can regenerate a pancreas. Another one I can see is, so for neurodegenerative disease, let's talk about that. Okay. Nothing against pharma or biotech, but the pipeline for neurodegenerative disease from pharma and biotech is not real. It's not real exciting.
Okay.
And there's reasons for that. I mean, the around your brain, you have this protective layer called the blood-brain barrier. It's supposed to protect your brain. It also makes it hard for medicines to get in there and to do their thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so I do think med tech can play a big role here. And I do think, stimulating structures of the brain, we see all the time, like for deep brain stimulation or brain modulation for Parkinson's, the dramatic impact it has. It's one of the most dramatic things we do. The problem with it, though, it is an implant. It is a form, although it's much less invasive, it is a form of brain surgery. It's hard to scale that. I can see external forms of stimulation where you go into a physician's office, it's very non-invasive, you don't feel a thing. Not to get too technical, but like focused ultrasound or something like that, like stimulating certain structures of your brain that helps you with things like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Making it less invasive,
Very less invasive. You go in for your semi-annual or annual checkup stimulation and boom, your symptoms are mitigated, and alleviated. Another one is just surgery. And it used to be, a physician would,
open people
up, and they're open for a long time as they're in there doing their thing, and exposes them to infections and complications, and recovery is long. Now with I think the advent of imaging technologies and non-invasive techniques, now robotics, AI, I can see a much less invasive surgical, and that's what's happening, right?
It's a revolution.
You're seeing this whole ecosystem form around it. Where we're seeing it the most right now is spine surgery for us, but soon to be soft tissue surgery with our soft tissue robot Hugo. It's more than just the robot. It's imaging, it's navigation, it's AI-based surgical planning software that tells all this technology what to do. I can see surgery becoming, for sure in 100 years, completely automated. An AI-based surgical plan that's personalized for you, that, all this technology that kind of goes ahead and does it automatically and in such a minimally invasive way, and where the outcome is all but guaranteed positive, right? I mean, that we are on a glide path to that right now. It's not going to take 100 years.
That's so cool to hear that it's not even going to be 100 years from now.
Not even,
that's awesome. And
we're still a little bit of ways away from replacing doctors, but today, the surgeons that are using the AI are going to outpace the surgeons that don't.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
For sure.
Working hand in hand with the technology. Yeah, I mean, it can't be an easy job identifying these trends and allocating the resources, because resources are not unlimited, to make sure that we're making these decisions to drive health where it needs to be. A couple rapid fire questions to spill the tea even further. What is something that people would be surprised to know about you?
First of all, I'm pretty much an open book. I mentioned one earlier that people think of like CEOs as kind of this kind of old, decrepit people.
I can attest to the fact that Geoff is a cool guy, not old and decrepit. Okay.
So I still, like I mentioned, I still play ice hockey. People are like, are you crazy? I mean, that's like, but actually ice hockey, it's a non-checking league. There's a little bit of contact, but I really enjoy that, and I enjoy everything about it. Not just the ice time, being out there and still playing hockey, but I enjoyed the locker room time, like where you're in there, everyone's equalized in that locker room. There's the team, I'm CEO Medtronic, and but
you're there for the game.
They're there, and I still get the same grief that everybody else gets, and there's a lot of trash talking that goes on, and I'm on the receiving end and on the giving end of it. I just enjoy that whole dynamic.
That's awesome. Wow. You're way more active than I am. I don't know how you do it, but that's awesome. Now for our final segment, Tech Time, where we dive a little deeper into the future of health and tech. Here at Medtronic, you and I have shared some interesting experiences. One of the fondest memories I have is going to the NVIDIA headquarters, meeting Jensen Huang, the CEO there, and talking about kind of how to integrate AI with what we're doing here in health tech. Looking to the future, what do you think sets Medtronic apart in the health tech space?
Look, what sets Medtronic apart going forward is, I think, what sets us apart in the last 75 years. Medtronic, if you look at the new standards of care that we've pioneered over the 75 years, I can't think of a second place behind us. I mean, we first invented the first pacemaker. So think cardiac rhythm and then cardiac rhythm management. Then we disrupted that, I don't know, 65 years later with the mic or the leadless pacemaker. But we came up with the whole concept of neuromodulation. We're now pioneering renal denervation for hypertension. The list goes on and on of some crazy idea that a physician or an engineer has, that we work together and we take a widget or a procedure, we fine tune it, we build clinical evidence, we build health economic evidence, we get it through the regulators like the FDA, prove it's safe and effective, and then launch it and train physicians and educate people globally to create new standards of care. The technology is getting cooler, and like we talked about it, AI, robotics, and biotech, and all these things coming together, super exciting. But our commitment to our mission gives you courage to be the first, and to take these type of risks. And I just don't see other companies quite at that same level in terms of developing new standards of care. Now that's not easy, and sometimes it's not always the best business decision. Honestly, we got to weigh that, but it's having a big effect on patients worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, even as a doctor, I feel like sometimes I take those disruptions for granted. We don't know what we don't know yet, and we often, when a new technology shows up on the shelf, we kind of just accept that, oh yeah, this was supposed to be the way it was. But really, it's all the decisions that are made here that really define what the next, what the next direction is going to be within health tech. And it's incredible to think about, where all of this can go and how you're leading this entire, community to drive this whole space forward. So thank you for that. That's awesome.
But you mentioned we've had some interesting experiences together. I a funny story. So you took me to my first colonoscopy, not my own, but when we were launching GI Genius, right? We
Yes.
saw some, colonoscopies. I've told that story to the business community. It's a good story to understand the impact of AI, right? And how it never gets tired, and it finds these polyps that the human eye misses, and the impact and the direct relation to cancer and how we can prevent it. And as I tell this story, I can't tell you how many people have told me, because of my conversation with you, Geoff, I went and got an AI colonoscopy, they call it.
Wow.
So they ask around, and then I had a news personality tell me the other day that every time I think about my colonoscopy, I think of you. I said, well, that's not exactly how I want to be remembered, but I'm glad that like the work that you helped pioneer, and it's making a difference. People are thinking about that new standard.
And actually, like AI in healthcare, even though there's a lot of talk about AI, to actually see it in action impacting patients is we're new to that, and we're the first to market with that sort of technology. So super exciting stuff that we've got going on here. One question I have: what are 3 essential traits for any leader out there?
3 things. The first is what I call clarity of thought, and what that means is, especially in today's day and age where there's all this data coming at you, all this information, how do you take all that data or information and translate that into the key insights and translate that into the key actions you need to do? There's a lot of smart people out there, high IQ, that aren't clear thinkers, but I do think you have to have a certain level of IQ to be a clear thinker. But I think clarity of thought is taught, is learned through experience, where you jump into a big project, all this new data, and your ability to boil it down to 2 or 3 things. I do think that's a learned, an acquired skill. So I always aspire to be that and to improve on that. So that's one, clarity of thought. The second is a sense of purpose, and I think Medtronic has showed me that. We call it our mission, but you have to really care about what you're doing, because at some point, you get tired, you get burnt out, or you're going to get challenged. You're going to have to show some perseverance. And if you don't have that sense of purpose, you're not going to get there. I mean, no matter how much money you're getting paid, no matter what your title is, all of those trappings are dwarfed by the power of having a sense of purpose, that you care. We call it a mission. There's different names for it, but generically I'll call it sense of purpose. And the third is humility. I find that humble people tend to be better listeners. Humble people tend to be active learners. There's a lot that goes with it, I think, more than you think in terms of listening and learning. And if you're not learning, you're in today's day and age, you're kind of dying, and if you're not listening, you're probably not learning, especially in today's day where, technology allows us access to all types of people, around the world, all kinds of information. To have the humility to actually look at it and listen to it and challenge your own, convictions. It takes some level of humility.
I love that. I can't tell you the number of times I've cited those three things and shared that with my teams and with other people who are, aspiring leaders out there. And the humility piece is so true, especially working in a space like medicine where there's just so much we don't know. I mean, science in general, there's so much more that I'm sure we've yet to discover. And without that sense of humility, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you be able to learn and grow.
And don't get me wrong, some people have a perception of humble people like, hey, they're quiet. No, you can be this type A leader, but just because you're out there and you have confidence and you're doesn't mean you're not humble. And just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're humble.
Yeah.
So don't typecast people. Humility is something that's deeper.
On that topic of leadership, if for all the aspiring leaders out there, if there's one piece of advice that you can give them, what would that be?
This sounds like trite and overused. People say, follow your passion. For me personally, people were telling me that early on, and I was repeating that, but I hadn't really internalized it. And I really wasn't at the beginning following my passion. And that's okay. You may not, but at some point, like I jumped at GE and GE Capital, not because it was my passion per se, but I knew that this was a great place to learn. But at some point, if you really want to have that impact, you've got to be in an area where you really enjoy it and have passion. Give you that superpower to have that impact.
You got to have purpose. Got it. Let's do some soul searching, everyone. All right. Very, very special thank you for taking the time out of your busy, busy day to join us, Geoff. This has been very eye-opening, and with all your expertise and experience in health tech, this is such a valuable moment for all of us. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, that's Spill.